Hello and welcome everybody to the S Collective podcast. My name is Gavin Duke, and today I am joined here with Rassi Ran, our photographer and videographer for the S Collective. How's it going, Rassi?
It's going pretty well. Still waking up, but I am pretty much woken up by now.
That's good. That's good. What's it like being in front of the camera?
It is very alarming. It's firing off all my
Your fight or flight?
all my fighter, a little bit of fight or flight, but also just being aware of it from the other side of the lens is obviously just very different.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So how long have you been with the S Collective?
I've been with the S Collective since day one. Before it became the S Collective, it was Veloce Auto Works, which got absorbed into the Collective, was then a PPF install shop.
That's it. And so you've done photography for them the whole time, and then you moved into video, right? After that?
Correct.
Nice. So when did you start photography?
Photography, that date is always elusive in my mind. I think, at least from a professional standpoint, it would be 2007 is basically when I collected the first paycheck from a client, and I thought I had made it with a $50 photo shoot of a horse. Well, actually, it was actually 100, and I had to return half of it because she was not satisfied with the work. And
Tell me about that experience, man. So the horse having to give 50% back. What happened there?
It was a life and business lesson wrapped all in one. It was exciting and then went terrible, and then it made me think, wait, am I doing this ever again?
Yeah.
But very cringe because thinking about all the settings and using the wrong lens and all that obviously would be done different today, but very first assignment was very green, and it was just the shutter speed was wrong. The lighting, the time of day was not right. Obviously, especially by today's standards, completely undercharged for the level of work. She was not satisfied with the images at all at the end, and then she asked for a solution, and I was like, I just basically panicked. I remember at the computer, I was like, well, I have to be paid something, and I was like, well, I can give half back, and she never responded after that. And that was my very first assignment.
Yeah, that's funny. Well, if you're out there, whatever your name is, he's gotten a lot better, I promise. That's funny. So what kept you interested after that? Like, what made you continue when you had a terrible first experience? Was it just like, I know it's going to get better? You still love the art. Like, what kept you going there?
It was people. Before I collected payment, technically turning it into in a professional sense, I went to a lot of hangouts with friends during high school, and I was the guy that had the camera in my hand, and I just like, kind of being in people's faces, and at times also taking photos of them candidly from a distance. And barely smartphones. They're still a very new thing. The cameras, those I think 3 megapixel cameras were barely lesser in quality than the latest point and shoots at the time. And people also browsed forums, and they used a lot of chat programs, and that's how I would share a lot of those images. And people just kind of enjoyed it, and I
That's cool.
I definitely vibed with the feedback, in person and online.
That's pretty cool. How would you suggest somebody get started with photography? Like they have nothing, no budget. Just how would you suggest?
My pointers that I would give would be to basically just shoot a high volume of work. It doesn't necessarily matter what it is, because that early work, like ask any professional photographer, videographer with 5-10 years under their belt, and ask if they visit their old work again. And the chances are they will say no because they are either too embarrassed or it is way too amateurish, which I can relate to. But shooting a high volume of work and you will sift through a lot of the visual noise, and then it'll hopefully steer you in a certain direction, because when you shoot a high volume of work, eventually you're going to meet certain people on your path and in the crossroads. And then it's like, oh, actually, I don't enjoy shooting weddings, for example. I actually prefer landscape or wildlife photography or videography.
Just finding your lane kind of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a good thing. And, you know, today, I think the easiest way is you don't really have to have much of a camera budget because everybody has their phone, which is a really easy way to get started. It's obviously not like professional grade, but I mean, how do you think that's changed just photography in general? Like, obviously the point of entry is much lower, or the barrier of entry is much lower. And just how smartphones and camera phones, I guess, have changed the industry a little bit.
I think it's fantastic. A lot of people who work in media, I would say, at the sort of boom of smartphones, which I feel is early 2010s, the early teens, if you will. That is when, in my opinion, a lot of the quality started to become a little indiscernible with dedicated cameras and looking at different industries. So I think the best camera you have is the one on you. Like, that is a very common saying.
Yeah.
And so, having a previous journalist experience, I looked at a lot of photojournalists' work, especially around the globe, to see how they work and operate in especially extreme conditions.
Yeah.
And it shed new light on how I viewed technology, especially as it progresses as rapidly as smartphones. But this is before mirrorless cameras, and in a lot of those kind of tense situations of when you're covering sensitive assignments, the last thing you want is a shutter to just, it's like be a audible reminder, like, hey, like, I'm here.
Yeah.
And sometimes you do want to blend into the background. And I think with the advancements of mirrorless today, you can get that now using a silent shutter. But I've been on assignments where I've covered candlelight vigils, funerals, for example, which is, I think, the sort of the birth of photography. That's, you know, being sensitive to the environment is paramount. And so I think that definitely went hand in hand with a lot of smartphones.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah, like I was saying, like, just the barrier of entry is so much lower, but that's a good saying. The best camera is the one that you have on you. 'Cause yeah, it's like whatever is there to capture the moment is what's important. All right, let's talk about marketing now. Let's go a different direction.
Sure.
So when was kind of that transition, I guess, with the rise of social media and like it being the major way that we market our company? When did you kind of transition into that role of like a marketing person, just from creative director to like marketing, doing social media, things like that?
I would say it started a little bit before my time with Veloce Auto Works. At the time, I had, I would say, about 2-3 years with a publication, Advocate Magazine. They're based in Dallas. They cover a lot of Dallas lifestyle and events, and they are heavily supported by a lot of the ads that they run, and some of the content is fluff, as with you know, a lot of publications in general. And so I could tell sometimes when I'm sent on assignment and it's more of a feature than a news piece, and so I have to mentally prepare when I get sent on these assignments. For example, it would just literally be me. I would be the face of the company, and certain people like to show a certain side of themselves, and that was a repeat experience that I saw over time again and again as I kept working with the magazine. And so transitioning from sort of news to kind of more features and social media marketing, that was to me a huge step, because now all of a sudden like I couldn't necessarily be 100% behind the scenes candid, and I have to sort of help craft the subject and how they want to represent it. So it reminds me of when the first time I read, there's like a saying that a person shows three faces to the world, and that is the one they show themselves, the ones they show to their friends and family, and then the ones they show to the world. And so in the magazine work, as well as transitioning more into marketing, I find myself seeing, at least visually, people tend to relate to the latter two.
Yeah, that makes sense. Just the outward face for sure. What they want everybody else to see. It can definitely dictate just what they show on social media and things like that. I think our job is kind of interesting though. Marketing on social media, it's interesting marketing a luxury product and service to the masses on just on social media in general, because we had talked about this earlier, but it's kind of like the not for the all but for the few. So it's like, how do you convey that just through social media and things? And I'm not sure where I was going to go with that.
No. I get your point. Not for the all, for the few. It's definitely challenging at times, because when we talk about brands, like for example Rolex, everyone and their grandmother, grandfather, they're great. You get the point.
Yeah, everybody
They
knows.
know what that brand is because it's very storied, and they have proven themselves with the one thing that no money can buy in the world, and that is time. Time and them working internally, discipline.
Heritage is a huge thing when it comes to the luxury market, and I think we had, like, S Collective is relatively new, with Veloce only starting about 2 years ago. But yeah, heritage is such a huge part of luxury brands, because you think of all these things, there's like craftsmanship back when everything had to be made by hand. Rolex, everything like that. They've been around for over 100 years and things like that. So you have a good point there.
Yeah, definitely. And so while we don't have time on our side per se, I do feel and believe that the company is making waves in such a short amount of time, because people are taking a chance on us. And I think, to me, that is the next big factor in all this, is we have a pool of people who we are grateful enough to have them bring us their one shot. And people talk, and we can only do so much marketing, but at the end of the day, if the client is not impressed with the work when it's outside the shop, they're sitting at home and they're staring at our work in their garage. If they are not impressed, and then there's no marketing that can convince them otherwise, but if they are impressed with the work, they're like, they did such an excellent job, I'm gonna go tell my buddy about this shop. And that is something that we hope for as the end result.
There's so much of it that can't be defined in a marketing budget kind of thing, where it is reliant on the customer experience and like how they feel about the product. And again, it comes down to like word of mouth. Are they going to tell other people about it? And that's obviously the most believable kind of marketing because people are telling their friends whom they trust. So yeah, I would say it's pretty interesting for us to kind of navigate that because we're having to kind of craft the whole experience a little bit and make sure that each part is working well and that the customer experience is good from the beginning when we get leads on the website or we get calls, whoever takes those, they make sure they have a good experience talking to whoever they are. And then when they come in, making sure that they get to see the whole operation. We get to tour, give them a tour of the whole place. And then obviously the work is the main thing that they're here for. And so making sure that is up to our standard every single time. So a lot of it does feel kind of out of our hands a little bit, but how do you go about like trying to show that on social media?
I think making it personalized, and when a person brings in their vehicle, I will most likely either photograph it or video it or a combination of sorts. So as long as I can follow up and follow through, if the client wants the content publicized, that makes it a little bit more special to them. And I think that is something that we have done at the very minimum that I see a lot of other shops sometimes do, but sometimes don't if they don't have us, dedicated, because a shop is just chaotic. There's a lot of chaos that happens in a good way. There's good chaos, and it's our job to basically help sift through and help capture their vehicles in the best of light. I think that is one of the best ways to help show a customer's vehicle that they can just basically grab their phone and like, hey, take a look at this, and then it might give them that dopamine effect.
Yeah,
and it's like, hey, check it out. And now I'm gonna bring XYZ next.
Yeah.
So they continue.
That's cool. I think that is something different that we do is just giving each client a picture and photo of their car looking its absolute best, because it will never look as good as it does when it's freshly done, freshly cleaned, and everything like that. So I think that's a fantastic idea because again, like you said, like not many people are doing that. And so, for anybody that is trying to like market a luxury product, just making it personal really goes a long way, and making sure that the customer experience is really good. A lot of the trust is built offline, I guess you could say, because you can have a really nice looking website, a really nice looking social media page, but if they don't trust the work or don't trust you, then you're not really going to get far. So that's my advice for that. But let's talk more about you. What are your other interests other than photography?
Oh my gosh. There's my family, love the boys and the wife.
You had to say that.
Yeah,
no. I'm just kidding.
She's standing right outside the office. No, time with the family, and I know that's a very generic answer,
but if it's true, then it's true,
And also, I do play a lot of video games. So if you want a mid player on your team on Apex Legends, just like hit me up.
That's so funny.
I started to or at least trying from time and time again, getting back into drawing, finding other creative mediums that will slow me down. I think that is, at least to me, necessary because I am so comfortable behind a camera, but trying to force myself to kind of slow down because life will pass you by, right? And dabbling in that, and it's just drawings of just me sitting in the back of the car and just like kind of seeing the people around me to just kind of just freehand just sketching. I don't know if any of these drawings will ever be public.
Hey,
maybe I'll just show it to the close people.
That's it. Yeah.
But maybe these drawings will be worth like 10 cents, like in like 100 years, or
Yeah.
maybe it will be worth millions.
Exactly. It could
long
be
after I'm dead.
Exactly. Yeah. You won't see any of the money,
No.
of course.
But
yeah, that's a good point of something to slow you down, because I guess when it becomes your job, photography is not so much an outlet anymore. It's it's how you provide, it's how you survive, kind of thing. So another way to be creative, is a good way to do that. So when you say slow down, does that mean like it's physically taking you longer to create something?
Oh yeah, it just slow down in all the sense. Slow down in the process. I can't just literally hit a button and then what I see is basically capture at least a slice of what I see.
Yeah.
But slowing on in that, I mean, professional people, people who draw professionally, they can obviously draw at a much faster rate. But this is me paying attention to every single mistake that I am not fond of or a fan of. Slowing down for me was more therapeutic, I would say, and it forced me to pay attention to a lot of the flaws in the drawing, or what I think are flaws, but also through repetition, at least in that sense, like what we talked earlier about, just doing a large volume of work, I can start to see the changes.
Yeah.
I'm starting to see changes from months ago to now. It was something that I enjoyed in college. Shout out to the Mavericks at UT Arlington. It's studying the human condition, I think, was always fascinating to me. We had live models to still lifes, and just learning how to pay attention to chiaroscuro, just like the contrast of light to dark, and things of that nature. I think that was just it made me so much more appreciative of working behind the camera, and I think that's why I started to pick that up again.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I can't draw at all, so that is really impressive. And half of what you just said kind of went over my head. But yeah, I think that's incredibly important for everybody, is to have some kind of outlet where it's not necessarily for work, but like you said, slowing down. Something
Definitely.
where you just take it all in, kind of a thing.
Yeah, I'm always super curious to see and hear what all our fellow colleagues kind of do to slow down, because our shop moves so fast. I can't help but wonder, not only coworkers, colleagues, but family and friends as well. It's like, what do they do to slow them down?
Exactly. Yeah. What are y'all doing outside of work? And how do you connect with the world around you? That kind of thing. Very cool.
I started to become a homebody after we purchased a home in 2017. I've always had this ideal hobby of just taking care of the things around the house, just the basic lawn, mowing the lawn and all those things. So I think I started to become this typical dad, and I love it. I spend a lot of the times just looking at lawns, long hair, and that can be a very, very deep thing.
That is so true. There's this one Instagram page that I don't remember the title or who the guy is, but his whole thing is he just takes care of his yard, and it's insane the detail that he goes through just in getting the stripes and everything. I'm and just the landscaping in general, in a flower bed and stuff like that. It honestly is really relaxing to watch, and this kind of the satisfying trend that's been going on the past couple of years, even with car detailing, it's people satisfying videos of cars being washed and cleaned. It's kind of the same thing. So I understand that. Yeah.
So that went down a rabbit hole for me for a bit, and you're talking about things that have taken up my time. I feel like it comes in waves, and then I go on the other end of the spectrum of that world, and there's a no lawn movement, and I think, I forget which month did they not mow, but trying to
Movember.
No,
I don't know.
trying to not mow during, I think it was May. So the birds and the bees can basically actually enjoy the patch.
Interesting. So like in the
lawn.
springtime. I
Yeah.
haven't heard of this before.
Yeah.
That's pretty interesting.
So yeah, the no lawn movement, and now it started to go against a lot of things. What I knew, I was like,
Yeah.
wait, so maybe mowing is a bad thing
Yeah.
because learning about preserving the ecosystem.
Yeah.
And I was like,
Yeah.
oh no, the birds and the bees.
That's hilarious. Yeah, you have to think it's like, oh well, I guess it wasn't like out in the wild. Grass is not going to be mowed,
Right.
and everything will take care of itself. Obviously, and then the introduction of neighborhoods and suburbs and everything kind of changed that. But I know there's one neighborhood in the Houston area where I'm from where it's like there are certain areas that they don't allow mowing. It was the Woodlands for a long time was like that, where it's not anymore. But like you couldn't mow your yard, and it was like all for the preservation of the wildlife and, like you said, the ecosystem just around. Like it'll take care of itself. It might not look as pretty as you want it to, but I thought that was pretty cool. But they've since done away with that. But yeah, that's an interesting hobby. It's the little things that people don't think about, where it's like enjoying the small things, where it's like you have to take care of the lawn anyway. Might as well make it personal and fun and stuff like that. So
yeah, and it goes back to, and I know that's a whole other world, but it goes back to the ones you show your close friends, family, the ones you show the world. Yeah. And I was at the Arboretum last night for their 12 Days of Christmas.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And I saw the Arboretum is obviously one of the most well manicured places, as most gardens like that are. But I can't help but think like, okay, so this part is extremely mowed, and then the other is just kind of wild and grown, and so they have like push pull effect. And I overthink about how that kind of carries over to other aspects of like one's life. Maybe I'm just reading way too much.
No,
into
tell
it,
me more about that. What do you think is like, if you see somebody with a mowed yard versus an unkempt lawn, like what does that show you?
I mean, I know we're talking way too long about lawn care when we're not even a lawn care.
The S Collective Lawn Care podcast.
I think a hybrid, a bit of both worlds. I think that was that's what spoke to me. Like life in moderation. Getting to enjoy a bit of both.
Yeah.
Not too much of one, but not too much of the other. Please don't come at me, Rochelle. She is about the no lawn.
Oh, really? Yeah. That's funny.
So speaking into social media marketing, from what I understand, it worked on you when you saw some of our content and how you reached out to us. Did you want to
tell your
story on that?
I had seen a video from 10 Flat Detailing, which is how I found out about this whole thing. And I had my own mobile detailing business for a while. And so I had messaged to see if there's like a partnership or something that we could do. And Kurt invited me in and saw the whole place, got the full tour, and then I ended up meeting with Cody, Kurt, and Daniel, just talking about who I am and that I was a marketing major and I was about to graduate in May, and then so we kind of moved completely away from the mobile detailing side, and they were like, well, we think you're more valuable as a marketer, and so that's how I started here. Which it was kind of really random. I didn't really expect anything out of it. I just sent a message like, oh, these people, like, I saw the video and then saw the social media, and then just kind of explored from there. But I wasn't expecting much when I had messaged. I was like, oh, they probably don't have time for this, but I just went for it. And so that's how I ended up here. And I've learned so much since being here. It's a lot different in the real world than it is in your college classroom. But it's interesting getting to learn or to apply what I have learned, because the 4 years that I was in school have exponentially helped me understand business. But being a part of one that is growing so quickly and being I guess, beginning of the marketing department, you and I, when I came in, it was kind of like, okay, we're the marketing department now. Has really shown me just a lot of, how to talk to customers, how to integrate sales and marketing, and, going from there. So, I've just learned so much from being here, and it was all just because of one brave DM. That was it. That's how I ended up here.
Yeah, it's crazy. That's
I know.
crazy.
Yeah, it was the video. I'm trying to remember. It was the we definitely don't.
Oh,
of course we don't do this. Yeah.
We're detailers. Of course, we're not going to go through your glove box.
And I thought it was hilarious. So it is kind of interesting now to it's almost like meeting a celebrity in a way. It's like, oh, I saw you on Instagram. And so like Carson and Ethan and Kurt and all them, I'm like, oh, I saw y'all on Instagram. And it's like, oh, y'all are real people. It's funny.
this is you.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of crazy just how it worked out.
Yeah.
But yeah. So, hey, if anybody out there, you see content that you like or you want to be a part of something, don't be afraid. Just send out a message. I mean, the worst they can say is no or not respond, but you're in the same place that you were before. So might as well try it out. Go for
it. Definitely on that note, it never, ever hurts to ask. I've had people ask me throughout the years if I need an assistant for this or that, or if there are any openings for this or that when I was at certain organizations. And it never hurts to cold call, cold text, cold email.
Yeah.
Because that'll put you in the front of my mind.
Yeah, exactly.
As long as you have socials, good socials, I would say.
Yeah, that's a
we
good
will
point.
reach out.
I think it's a good lesson for everybody because everybody's kind of afraid to like put themselves out there in that way.
Yeah.
And once you realize like you're not getting judged if you send out a message like, I don't think of you any less as a person, like just because you were asking if we had a job. Like even if the answer is no, like you said, it's like, well, now I know who's going to be interested next time I do need somebody.
Right.
And so even if it's not right now, like just go for it, and you really have nothing to lose. And that was kind of where I was at, where I was like, hey, like it's a cool operation they have going. So it's like, what do I have to lose? Like, I'll be in the same place that I am right now. Just go for it. And so you can apply that to pretty much anything. It's like sales too. It's like, don't be afraid to ask and just see what happens,
I will say on a counterpoint, I will judge. There was a short story about when I called a potential photographer that we were looking to hire when I was editor at the college paper, the Shorthorn. The voicemail.
Oh no!
Just thinking about it, makes me chuckle. The person didn't pick up when I called him, and the voicemail. And for those who have watched Saw, or at least familiar with Saw, the villain is Jigsaw, and has a very animatronic voice, but it's also kind of like just obviously modulated to sound creepy and deep. That was this guy's automated voicemail. Usually, it's you self-record just yourself, right? But no, it was like, if you dare to leave a message, like please. I was like, what?
Yeah, reputation does get around, but that's hilarious. Oh my goodness, that was a big thing for a long time too. Is people would have a song on the radio and then would turn it down and then be like, just leave a message and stuff.
Yeah, like it can be universal, but also just
make it a little professional.
Clean it up. Look at that email handle that you maybe wrote when you were like 12 years old.
Look at the profile picture too. Make sure it's you.
Yes.
I saw this one. It was a Twitter post, and it was a picture of like, I've been sending out job applications and resumes with this profile picture, and it was like Patrick Star from SpongeBob, and like a really weird, like it didn't look like him, and it was like, oh my gosh, it's like, they're probably judging you for that. But so if you do, make sure you're online presence is a little professional, depending on what you're going for.
Yeah. Do not apply for a high-powered job or position within any company.
Exactly.
And you still have content from when you were 12, 13 years old.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
due diligence.
Yeah. But yeah, no, having an online presence too is really important. And, personal branding has become extremely important with a lot of people too. It's how creators are making money online and just being themselves.
Of course.
So having a strong personal brand can help you out a ton. Because jobs will look at your social media, they will try to stalk you before they even bring you in for an interview.
Mm-hmm.
So having, even if you don't want to be a social media person, just making sure that if you do have social media, your page reflects who you are. But in the personal branding section, or I guess people have used social media to kind of just show more people who they are, and
Right.
a lot of opportunities come from that. And somebody who's not necessarily a creator can become one and become Instagram or TikTok famous just because they put out content and just show the world who they are. So yeah, personal branding, I think, has become extremely important in just the world of social media.
Yeah. At the end of the day, it's still a tool, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's still a tool for a business, still a tool for a personal brand, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
And how much you want to put out there is definitely incumbent on yourself or the company.
Yeah.
And social media is not the end all be all, but everyone within the company, you have to assume is still going to look at your credentials. Because sometimes I wonder how much of it is glossed over or taken more seriously than, say, a LinkedIn page, right? Because some people are on LinkedIn, some people have nothing on there. It really depends on how they continually update themselves.
Yeah.
And that's another thing. It's updating yourself, being sort of vigilant on keeping your life up to date every, I don't know, 8 months, every year, kind of making it a habitual thing. That's one thing I think I learned a little too late in life, but I was taught about that, about basically keeping everything
up to date for sure.
Skill sets.
Especially in the professional sense, like if you are looking for a job or you're using that for opportunities with other people, you want to make sure that it's updated and reflects who you are now. Like even just a profile image, it's like you probably don't look exactly how you did 10 years ago. So you want to make sure that it reflects who you are now. But yeah, I think keeping that updated is a good point. With social media, when you put something on there, it's there forever.
Right.
So
you can try and delete all you want, but it's still gonna
screenshots are a thing.
Yep.
That was something my parents always taught me. It was like, hey, once you put something out there on the internet, it's there forever. So that's just a caution for everybody, I think, is just, be aware that once it's up there, it's up there.
Yeah.
And so, being mindful of just reputation online, because that's such a huge thing.
Right.
And just how people view, honestly, just how times have changed. Social media is the way people know about you now. And if your reputation online is not great, or your voicemail is the saw voice, then it's that's going to have an effect on how people view you and what opportunities you get. So really being mindful, if social media is a tool that you use, making sure it is up to date. But yeah, what do you think about people using social media, or people not using social media? Do you think it's hurting them, beneficial? I can see kind of both sides, and so I just want to know what you think.
I definitely see both sides. I think we have been sitting at this social media fatigue, and I say that sort of for a blanket statement that covers over the state of the world today. Keeping my thumb and tabs on Blue Sky, for example, which has has been taking off. People are always looking for the next platform.
Yep.
But I think people crave, and this is the the positive benefit. I think people do crave more genuine connections
Yep.
with brands, and you're starting to see more and more corporate trying to be the next. Oh, hey, buddy, I'm the guy
Yeah.
or girl that you hang out with at a party, and so this is my slang and all that, and they're trying to relate. And sometimes it sticks, sometimes it doesn't work.
It kind of depends on how they do it, I think, because you're right. Like being authentic is super important, but you can't fake it, and it's
Right.
very obvious when brands try to fake it. So that's a good point.
Yeah, and so it's Gavin and I's job and duty to keep our pulse on the changing landscape. But at the end of the day, like I said earlier, it's still a tool to use, and it's a tool I feel as collective should use as a baseline at the very minimum, because there's no other avenue for discoverability besides word of mouth and social media. And the first thing people are going to do if they don't know us is look us up on the internet.
That's it.
But the other is word of mouth. And it made me think about when I listened to Larry Chen, who is a phenomenal photographer, very well known in the automotive photography world. And he sat on a podcast with Adam LZ. I think I've listened to it twice now, just basically fanboying a little bit.
Taking it all in, yeah.
But he talked about how he himself recognizing him saying his words that I'm not the greatest photographer, and I can promise you the one thing is that I will be at this specific event way longer than you. So he's there to capture everything and as much as he can. He will show up super early to an event and stay. He said he would sometimes be the very last photographer of a extremely big event like D1.
Yeah.
And it was year in and year out. And while he helped capture that, obviously for their social media marketing and things like that, he also helped solidify his name in that space.
Yeah.
And he was, and speaking to sort of Unfiltered, like he even spoke on that podcast how he didn't really get paid for a chunk of some of these works, and the commercial side is what kept his bills paid, from what I understand. But a lot of the sacrifices that he made, because I know he has a family as well.
Yeah, that's gotta be tough.
But the sacrifices he makes to get his name and face in front of that large, rapidly growing audience of the automotive world with social media is he's simply just stayed and just shot day in, day out.
Yeah.
And I think that is what helps get recognition.
Yeah. That's a good point, because he's capturing things that other people aren't because he's there longer. And yeah, I mean, that reminds me, it's just like the things you aren't willing to sacrifice are what's going to slow you down from like being the greatest. And so, yeah, like I'm sure everybody has heard the name Larry Chen and knows about his work if they don't know anything about him. But yeah, it's just about putting in the time, putting in the work. And obviously he's more mindful than other photographers about like, this is purposeful. Like I'm here the whole time to capture before, middle, after, everything about the event. And so, yeah, that's a good point just for anybody really, is like what you have to understand what you're willing to sacrifice. And obviously that's a time with his family, time he could be doing other things that he's sacrificing, and he's putting it in towards his craft and making him the best of the best, really. But yeah, going back to kind of like the social media, I think I have a lot of friends that don't use social media, and I can see why. Like it's honestly, like it can be kind of stressful sometimes to constantly be looking around or like trying to keep life updated or
Right.
constantly keeping up with everybody around you. So, you know, I sometimes take breaks from social media, not as much anymore since it's part of our job, but yeah, just taking time away where it's like a week without social media and you realize like it eats a lot of time and you focus on like sometimes I have never really struggled with comparison, but I understand that that is a lot of like a lot of people do struggle with that. They see what everybody else is doing and feel like their life is not that great when it's like, well, they're only putting the best of the best out there. And so I think this new movement with authenticity is very good because people are showing like the unfiltered side where it's like, hey, like in some businesses, like small business owners will be like, today was tough. Like, you know, this happened. This is where I failed. This is where the business failed. And like you said, I think this is where people really are like craving that authenticity and genuineness because, you know, everybody's just been seeing highlight reels for the past,
Right.
however, you know, 10, 15 years that social media has been around.
Right. And I cannot speak enough about what you had just said about how people even beyond social media, people when they run into each other, almost like like a reunion, they try to show their best selves, like
Yeah.
show the highlights. I was like, oh, I hit this milestone, this milestone. And then you take that individual storied kind of package and then you throw that into the digital sphere, and that is social media.
Yeah.
And I know we're explaining the general social media sort of one-on-one that people are used to, but I think it's not, it hasn't been beaten enough into people's minds that when you see other people's work, you're seeing a lot of the times the best
Yeah.
of their work.
Or sometimes not even the full truth. It could be
And-
just it's a part of something else where it's like, oh, here's everything that went well,
Yeah.
but then they're still hiding all this other stuff. So,
Yeah, exactly.
but I think that's where a big, you know, kind of gateway point for brands is. It's like, okay, like we want you to be real. Like we don't expect every business to be perfect. And yeah, for small business owners, there's never been a better time to really like show yourself and show the business because that's what people are wanting to see. And like I've noticed content that I connect with is people being completely genuine and they'll share their wins and they'll share their losses. And so, yeah, there's this huge gap between like big brands and then like creators where it's
Right.
all of this stuff that, you know, brands like bigger companies can't really compete with smaller businesses in the social media realm because there's not like somebody dedicated to like showing the founder story,
Right.
like there's not that it's less important or less of a story because they're obviously more established and they had that a long time ago. They had their kind of founding moment a long time ago because I mean you think about any small business like Chick-fil-A was just just some, you know, restaurant in Georgia, and then it blew up into what it is today, franchises all over the place. Same with McDonald's. It was, you know, it's like just the one location. And, you know, then the founder took everything or, you know, took it to franchising and then went from there. But, yeah, I think for brands, it's just, you know, social media has never been there's never been a better time in social media for them to be authentic and build true relationships with their customers, which is really what you want at the end of the day. All right. Thank you guys so much for joining us today on the S Collective podcast. That is all the time that we have here today. Yeah. Thank you for being here, Rassi. It was a pleasure talking to you and getting to learn more about you.
Yeah. Thank you for having me, and it's been fun to be on the other side of the camera this time.
Yeah, exactly. The other side. All right. See y'all next time.